all of a sudden I could talk about AI with clients without it being a stigma or something they were afraid of. Used to in the old days, if I wanted to research a company, I would type their name into Google and start looking around. Now I have an assistant that if I tell it the name, he can tell me everything I need about that company and even throw it in Salesforce. This is why Google cares about who wrote it, who they are, why they're communicating it. They're caring about that because that's what you're going to be able to find in search that you can't find in AI, is real people saying real things.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Long Game. Today's guest is Chuck Aikens, who is a veteran in the world of content marketing. He's been creating content and marketing playbooks for over 20 years, but recently he has fully drank the AI Kool-Aid. In this episode, we talk about co-creating content with AI that actually is good and does not suck. We go into a masterclass of how to build content with AI step by step by step, and how to get good results by breaking down the work into multiple agents for the content creation process. We also talk about some of the low-code tools that Chuck is using to stitch together, get this, almost 100 different agents to address different prompts, different queries, different steps within the content creation process. There's so much that we get into. I really hope you enjoy this episode. It was a lot of fun. I learned so much, and I hope you do too. And remember, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Thanks, and sit back and enjoy the conversation. Chuck, thanks for coming on the show.
Elijah, hi, thanks for having me.
Given your background is in content and copywriting, when did you have like a moment where you first saw ChatGPT or GPT 3.0, 3.5, whatever it was? You saw it and you said, oh shit, this is going to fundamentally change copywriting and content creating. Were you ever like afraid of that, or was it all good vibes from day one?
Mostly good vibes when we talk about what happened 18 months ago when OpenAI released ChatGPT, whatever version that was that hit in January and February. Prior to that, I was already exposed to AI. Specifically, the tool that I was using was a product called Jasper, which is already built on large language models, and you could produce copy with AI. And I had already been playing with it. And what changed when ChatGPT and OpenAI showed up is that the narrative changed. And all of a sudden, I could talk about AI with clients without it being a stigma or something they were afraid of. Now, I know we're still in early adoption, but before that, if you told someone you were going to write copy with a computer or using algorithms or any type of low code or no code assistance, I saw it as a way to get more efficiency and even more performance if you can do content at scale. So I was already playing with it before, but what changed at that moment was it became okay. It was no longer negative, or it was no longer a computer science or a programmer's world anymore. It came to the world of marketing really fast because every marketer, and I didn't, of course, talk to people that weren't marketers. They just wanted to go try it, see what it did. Like, look at this little toy I have. So that's really what changed for me in that first quarter of 2023 was now I'm allowed to talk about it. I'm allowed to experiment with it. I can tell, I can say, hey, let's try to rewrite this blog post or what can it do with an image or a video? So just the fact that it sort of became mainstream. I know we're not there yet, but it at least became a conversation piece. That was the aha moment. And I kind of had to coach people because I'd already been exposed to it, to like, don't be afraid. We need to figure out how to use this as an assistant, not as a replacement.
That's what I was going to ask, because I definitely feel like it went out of the fringe, not fringe science, but like the fringe things that it's like, oh, I've heard about that, but I don't want to do that with my business because it's going to be shitty and it's going to be subpar quality. Did you still have founders or businesses that were aware of it and aware of its capabilities, but still averse to it because of either moral or just like fear or other reasons where they're like, I know it can do it, but I don't want to even explore it. I don't want to touch it. Or was everyone pretty receptive to trying out AI?
For me, everything about AI, I feel it's a little more binary than other conversations, meaning someone either loved it or hated it. They saw the future, or they saw danger. It's either gonna heal us and we're gonna live 200 years, or it's gonna kill us. Right? Everything about this, the conversations were binary. So if I were trying to answer that in a binary way, I would say that the founders and marketers, the anyone that I talked to, if they were from a basis of technology, they accepted it, and they looked at it the same way you'd look at how Amazon Marketplace works, how Google search algorithms work, how low code, how APIs work. It just was another piece of technology, because APIs changed everything back in the days.
Hmm.
So did the browser. Now we have AI come along. How do you ride this next technology wave and even leverage it? So those people accepted. If they came from a creative background, there was a lot of resistance. And that really showed up in marketing for people that maybe they're a brand manager, because their value that they bring to the world isn't in building it necessarily. It's in creating. And AI threatens that, and it does it somewhat subpar, right? Like to get a blog post is pretty easy. To get an image, that's hard. To piece together. Every creative person will kind of laugh at the six fingers that show up all the time. In the images. So I'd really say that it just kind of depend on where they were coming from. But then when I would tell the creatives, like, wow, we can do data analysis for you, they're like, thank God. Right? Like, I think different people wanted to do different things with AI, and that's what I teach. Like, oh, let's start with what you don't want to do. Don't take away the joys you have in your work, in your craft, in your business. Let's talk about what you don't want to do. Let's start there. And the creatives didn't want to do data, but the technology people didn't want to do creative. And so that everyone's trying to use AI for the other thing and trying to convince the other people. And yeah, I just found the creative and strategy kind of folks have a little bit of a harder time with the adoption and saying, oh yeah, AI can help me. But as soon as you give them use cases and really break down the task, they see the value in things like the research and different items. But no, great question there.
Yeah, I want to get into kind of your playbook and that process of, where can people be applying AI broadly speaking? Because I think use cases it's a very businessy word, but I do think that use cases and being able to take this tool and apply it to your own life is the part that connects with anyone. And
Mm-hmm.
so whenever you're able to make it personal and then solve a pain point or a problem that someone has, like you
Yeah.
were saying, the marketers want data, they don't necessarily know how to do it, or they don't have the resources to do it because it's too expensive to hire someone to do it. Like whenever you're able to kind of address that specific pain point, that's where you get that inflection, that's where you get that change, and you get that adoption of that new behavior. So did you have to spend a lot of time in these conversations, coaxing, pulling, identifying what use cases are while also learning the tool? Or was it you had one use case, you're able to kind of show up with that use case and people were like, oh, I get it, let's use it?
That is a great question. And I almost feel it is one of the most misunderstood aspects of AI. So the way that I think about it, which isn't your direct question, but it'll get to the direct question, is that first you have to have a process. Then you have to understand all the steps in that process, because then you have the use cases. Then you got to think about, can I delegate this? Can I automate it? Can I add AI to help with it? And what everybody does, and we'll talk about it more, is they go straight to the prompt and they try to solve the problem. And it's like, wait a second, that's step 8. Step 1 is way back here. And what I found for myself is that when I'm doing things 100% human, I can just jump all over the place. It's like I'm ADHD, just, running around doing all kinds of different stuff. But if I stop and have a focus and say, all right, I'm going to do something in 1 45-minute period from beginning to end, and these are all the steps, and I'm going to like write it in Figma or Whimsical or whatever, Miro, whatever you use, like to make yourself do that first before you go to a prompt, and then say, ooh, which one of these things could AI help with? I mean, that right there, like go back to school or take a class, or just thinking through that, it's difficult, to just sit like that. There's, people will say there's an art to delegating. There's an art to automation and process development, and not everybody's cut out for it. So, and until you do that, you really can't sit and say, how can AI help me? Now you can do that individually. I usually have people start with themselves. Like, can it do a report for you? Can it do a grocery list? Can it fold your laundry? But what can you do, just of yourself, just to get used to interacting with it? Much like if you got a virtual assistant, you got to figure out how to say the right things to get the job back. You have to learn how to enter, and most people do. They kind of play around with the prompts and do different things, but just there is a huge exercise. But to really get AI to work for you, or to help with any part of the process, I mean, you gotta sit down and think about this a little bit.
The
So I
words that you're
was figuring out the
using.
process while I was learning AI. That
Yeah,
now I can apply it to other processes quicker, but that first
yeah.
time, man, it was a mess. It took 9 months.
I think even the way in which you talk about using it is, you said numerous times, get it to help me, right? Have it work on or work with me on something. And I think that shift, and again, you said it took 9 months to kind of figure out what that process is, but understanding that this is not a tool that replaces something. And generally speaking, whenever we create a tool as humans, whether it's
And
a
humans,
stick to
right?
kill animals, or it's fire to cook meat, or it's the browser to browse the web, you have to use the tool and work with it. It's not going to completely replace the thing. Even a
Right.
dishwasher, you have to load and unload and maintain
Yeah.
and all these other things, right? So understanding that this is a tool like any other, and that you have to engage with it, you have to understand it, and there's no instruction manual currently, so you have to just kind of learn through experimentation, and then learn how do I best use and work with this so it can help me in the things that I would do already. And like you said, well, when you are asking for help, and it's kind of garbage in, garbage out. If you ask for vague, ambiguous help from someone of, hey, can you help me move? They might show up and bring a pizza because they thought you needed food, or maybe they'll bring a dolly so they can lift stuff, or maybe they'll just come and keep you company, right? But if you ask a friend, hey, can you show up at this time on this date and carry a bunch of boxes in my apartment to help me move to this other place, you'll get more
Exactly.
specific results out of the ask. And the same thing applies to AI.
Exactly. Well said.
For using AI in marketing, can you talk us through what your process is, like soup to nuts, masterclass style?
Yep.
Where would you start with a company that says, okay, we're creating content right now, but we want to incorporate Gen AI in some aspects of it? What's that entire process look like if someone wants to just get started?
Right. So let me give a little bit of context so that you know where I'm coming from as I go to make content, which is what I'm going to put the lens through. And I know exactly where we will start because I've tried to start at all different parts in the process. But the first thing, because it explains why I started the process, is Google publishes a little bit of information that tells you how they think about content. And it was the way that I got brought up on content. So let's use Google as an example. The first is there's 10 things that Google knows to be true. It's on their corporate website. It's their philosophy. Number one thing that they know to be true is that focus on the user and all else will follow. I've done in my whole career as a marketer, it always starts with your persona, your target audience. Who is the customer you are trying to attract, gain their attention, build awareness, move into consideration, the traditional marketing funnel. Okay. So this is all about everything I do in content and marketing. It starts with the person. I know that is simple, but every time I talk, particularly to a business to business CEO, it's their products, their features, their team, their expertise. They tell me about that for about 30 minutes before they ever even mention their customer. So I'm always starting at the customer. What is their pain points? What do they care about? What are their fears, challenges? 100%. The other thing that Google talks about is helpful content. This was something that was an add-on for years. Last March, they made it part of the core update. We have a
What do you
follow-on
mean by
called.
add-on? Like, what does that mean?
It wasn't part of their core algorithm. It was they would do updates. So think of it like back in the old days. I'm going to date myself. There were software patches, right? It's something along those lines. Like that you experiment with something before you put it into the main algorithm.
So they didn't weight the content and search results based on
On it,
helpfulness
right?
until more
So
recently.
yep. So basically, Google has hundreds, if not thousands, of quality raters that rate content on the website, and they publish all this. They tell you what's important that the quality raters look for. To break it down, it's called E.E.A.T, expertise, experience, authority, and trust. E.E.A.T. So Google publishes what that means and defines it, and then they talk about what they're looking for in their core algorithm based on all of those inputs of the quality raters. is your content helpful to the searcher? And the reason this is important is if you go to Google and you do a search, if you get helpful content, you come back and do another search. So the quality of Google's product is actually about all of us marketers out there and web builders and creators and builders making helpful content. So that's what they're looking for, is helpful content that the user or your target audience wants to consume and interact with. Now you can talk about yourself, but you got to be helpful. And one of the things that they talk about inside of the helpful content, if you have one takeaway, is that if you're going to produce content, Google's looking for information gain. They want whatever you say to not only be from an expert with experience and authority that can be trusted, but what are you bringing to the table that adds to the internet, right? If not, why would Google slide you into the top 10 and knock somebody else out unless you're bringing something new to the conversation? When you break it down this way, because everyone's always like, how do I win at SEO? Yeah, you can do title tags and headers and fast sites and links and all that kind of stuff. Or you can produce content that has information gain that is helpful to the user and focuses on the questions and challenges and aspirations that they have, and that changes how you think about SEO and content. So first, know that in the process. That's where I'm coming from. Also, so everybody knows, Google says that if it is helpful, they don't care if AI generated it or not. They just want it to be helpful.
Oh, interesting.
Google
Is that
says
their
that.
official stance?
That's their official stance. All they want is helpful, people first content. Go look it up. It's at the top of their webmaster guidelines. So this
people
is
first, meaning that it's helpful content for people, or
yes,
what's people
not
first?
not
Okay.
written for the purpose of search rankings,
Gotcha.
right? So no manipulation of the search rankings. You don't produce content for this, either the sake of content or for because you found a keyword that had volume. It's not how you should do content. So with all that said, believe it or not, where I start brands soup to nuts process because of how AI works is we start with 3 foundational documents. And I built tools so that everybody can do this in about 45 minutes. So I've got a website called Tidal Wave Content, and I'll get into why it's called that in a second. If you sign up real quick there, name, email, I'm not trying to sell you anything. You can make these 3 documents because they're so important. The first, persona, target audience. Some of it's demographics, but all of us know there's psychographics, there's behaviors, there's what are they going to do, what do they care about. So the first thing is just write it down before we do anything so that we know. And I often encourage people to make multiple personas. It's not that I want a micro segment, but none of us sell to just one target audience. We have different verticals and niches, and even like in B2B, you have the buying committee that exists at the ICP. Usually, you're selling to the CEO, maybe a marketing person, maybe the product manager. I mean, you got all kinds of people that are looking at your solution potentially. Those can all be personas. You can make a little focus group, and then even like if most businesses have different people they're trying to interact with, can all be personas as they're selling with. Secondly, brand promise, which gets into things like, what are you telling this user that you are going to improve for them? How are you going to make their life better? A lot of times that'll get fancy talked into benefit statements or value props, but just real simply, what are you delivering to that persona specifically? And then last, writing guidelines, voice, tone, second person, first person, funny, humorous, whatever it might be. With these 3 documents, and we don't do anything until we have them, is a starting point. And then what happens if you have them? Let's go back to the prompt now. Because if we go and use ChatGPT and attach the file, or if we have projects with Claude, now I've got, to use an industry term, I've got my RAG. I've got my knowledge base that I can attach and augment to the large language model and give it that direction like you were talking about with moving. Now, we all know this is AI, guys, but I'm telling you, if I'm teaching a workshop tomorrow, there's 25 people in it, 24 people will not know that you can attach PDFs and documents to every prompt, and it increases the accuracy, context, the outputs tremendously just by having those 3 documents. So I know who you're targeting, what you want them to know, and how you want to say it. Like, that's going to change everything about the content that you generate at a prompt and other things. You want to analyze some, you want to do some data analysis of your sales calls because you're doing transcriptions on Gong. Great. who's the persona? I got to know this. I even have this little game that when I'm doing the transcript reviews of gongs for sales team performance, I have the transcript guess which persona it is because it's in the knowledge base. That way, I don't even have to.
That's
Who are they
interesting.
selling to? I don't have to look it up. I
That's
can just
interesting.
quickly say, oh, this based on the conversation, they're more of a nervous Nelly or a or an adventurous Adam. Who knows? And I'm making those up, but that just know that it is all about giving it that little bit of knowledge base changes everything when you're trying to output. So we start there.
It's interesting that it's those three fundamental things: a persona, what value you are trying to drive, and then the way in which you're communicating it. Because again, I've never spent much time in the world of marketing, but I would assume that even prior to AI, you would still want to have those three pillars of definitions
Mm-hmm.
prior to writing a single piece of content. You need to know who you're writing for,
Yeah.
how you're writing to them, and what you're trying to communicate. Because without that, you're kind of just,
Yeah.
just
Well,
making up words and putting them on
here's what
paper.
I saw over 15 years in doing that 500 brands. Everyone would build it, and then it would go into the proverbial cabinet of all the files and docs that you have, or when we went digital, put it
Internal
on
wiki.
doc. Yeah, it's just and when a writer or a marketer or a brand manager would sit down to do copy or creative, they don't go back. They don't go back and look at the persona. They don't go back and look at the brand book. They don't look at the brand pillars. What we have now, if nothing else, is that every time I produce copy or I have copy reviewed and audited, let's say it was 100% human written, I can bounce it through AI to see how well it speaks to the persona. Like I could grade it. Like, is this piece of content, does it resonate with Nervous Nelly? Right? Like I could even see, like, does it like just having that quality check because I have the information or when I do it. So the difference is yeah, everybody always did it, but then they didn't put it into the workflow because that's hard as a human. I'm spending so much time just typing. How can I look at another doc? Like I gotta get my flow going and just type, and write what
Yeah.
I want to write. And that's human nature, which is why I developed the process the way I did to dive into it. Next step in the process is now that I know the product and service that I want to market, and I know those three base components, I start to build out the content strategy. And there's three different strategies that I deploy, and they line up with the marketing funnel. Your first wave or first layer is all informational. This is usually the table stakes of what you have to do. So, for example, today I was working with a company that does these herbal formulas in liquid forms. They're called tinctures. So you can buy a tincture at the grocery store, and it'll help you uh, maybe with premenopause. It'll help you with stress. It'll help you with all kinds of things naturally. Well, you just got to, if you're going to market that type of company, they have 150 different herbs that they blend together into different formulas. That's informational content. What are the benefits of elderberry? What if I put elderberry with red cherry bark? Like all this information. Usually, a brand or a business has to put out FAQs, information, glossaries, just all kinds of content, just to establish topical authority for users and for search algorithms. Right? Just base. So we usually try to figure out, what do your personas care about? What kind of information do they need in the research phase to learn more about you and just feel like you know what you're talking about? So they can almost classify you. So that's wave number one. Wave number two, consideration. Why? Why should I be interested in what you're talking about? And this is the part, like in the case, let's stick with the herbs for a second. There was a blog post they put out, and it basically was, how could, if I'm curious about uh, maybe soap being sober, what herbs help me with that? Now you're closer to a decision because you're trying to solve a problem. Like, why would I care about these herbs? And then
Solving a real
why is
problem
it?
for a real
Yeah,
human with
it's in liquid
emotional
form.
connection.
So then we go through and we do a lot of this. And then the last part is true human connection, which often involves video, thought leadership, expertise, webinars, white papers. This is the last mile. This is where people decide to buy. So I'm aware of you. You educated me on everything a little bit. I appreciate that. Looks like you know what you're talking about. Move into the, how specifically do you solve my problems? And I got to understand what your problems are. And then lastly, you know, I've got to decide to buy from you. So I need to like you. Could be it could be the founder's story. It could be, just, hey, they're smart other guys and they built a good system. Maybe it's because they like the Giants. I don't know, right? Like who knows? But there's usually a human connection that goes along with most purchases. I know when you get enterprise level and big, you right you buy from, I mentioned Box or Dropbox or Google. Like there's not a personal relationship there, but 80% of what I buy, I mean, I'm buying the people behind it, and I got to see them. And the way we do that today in the world of Zoom and webinars is you got to get your face on camera and be talking. If they like you, they might buy from you. If they don't, they'll buy from somebody else they do like. So that third wave is all about person connection. And I've got some techniques that I use that are powered by AI to get there. So once we decide that, we're ready to start, because we know who we're marketing to, what they care about, how we want to say it, and then we can develop one, two, or three ways depending on what we're working on. Some brands try to do all of them at the same time. I usually like to start with one, kind of walk before you run. But now we're ready to finally break out AI, even though we used AI to get there. I mean, the amount of research that I can do to think about what a persona wants, and brainstorm and have a conversation with the large language models, it's tremendously helpful. I used to have to keep somebody around on payroll just to have a brainstorm person that I can go in and get on a whiteboard, right? Now I can just whiteboard with AI. It comes up with
And that's
7 ideas. I throw 3 out. I keep 4. I reiterate. Half hour later, I've got 10, 15, 20 good content ideas.
That's one of the things that's interesting about AI as well, is that it you can cast it and transform it into whichever role or assistant you need. And so you were talking about the researcher, right? So with producing these 6 documents or these 6 areas of marketing distinction and definition, you can do researching, you can do brainstorming, you can do back and forth, and then you say, okay, now we can bring in AI for the actual content creation, which is a copywriting assistant, right? And kind of support you in that
Absolutely.
regard.
Let's park there for a second, because you're using the word assistant. And I want anyone that's listening, just in case you're not there yet, because this is the word of the month, word of the summer, right? So what we're doing in AI, or I'm doing in AI, and the people that I'm in my echo chamber, right, my other AI enthusiast, I mean, we're building assistants as fast as we can. I'm not building one a day, but I'm pretty close. And these are things you'll hear them called custom chat GPTs. You will hear them called assistants, but basically,
Agents is a more
agent
technical
is
term for
another.
them.
Yep. So basically, I see and have a hit list of about 100 assistants. It's closer to 80, between 80 and 100, that need to be built for the complete process, just for content marketing, just for content.
Wow.
We're not talking ads, Amazon, other, website building. We're talking even the content part of it will be part of that, just for your marketing, your branded content, for marketing, for awareness, consideration, and decision. Wow. And what's happening out that is because now I'm at a problem case I built up from the use case. What you have are different innovators and builders attacking different problem cases. And the way that we've kind of all decided that it works best is because of where we are in the large language model development, is since it can't handle the complex task, but it can handle a very definitive task. Well, we got to teach it a bunch of individual tasks and then daisy chain the information sharing from one agent to another. And like, this makes sense to me because I've always been a low code, no code guy, an API guy, that I got to keep like passing everything around. I've never had a central database of record necessarily that I'm always working for. Like back in the old days, it was a Microsoft stack, SQL, ASP, bring it up and show it in a browser. Like everything was in a closed system. In today's world, you're grabbing stuff from everywhere and then hodgepodging together. So you got to have all these communications. So the challenge right now is to get the agents not only to talk to each other, but also the interaction with APIs to grab real data for the RAG and the augmentation. Like this is going to change. This is going to change the way that marketing works as these workspaces come out of connected and unified agents. And I'm guessing, based on the way this is developing, I probably won't have, and we won't see a lot of unified workspaces for about 6 to 9 months, just because we're all having to back up and say, wait a second, we underestimated how hard this was going to be to figure out. And it's not hard to build. I can build it. I could build it. I could build it if I stopped. I could probably build it in 30 to 45 days. That's not the problem. The problem is teaching people how to think, use, and then adopt the work of the agents and then integrate it into what they're doing. Because I teach co-creation, which is everything is done by about 25% AI and 75% marketer. And I don't think we'll beat a 50-50 probably until about 2028, 2029. And after that, I don't care. Because then it's going to get crazy. But yeah, at most, we want AI at the table. And I even saying it doesn't just assist me. What I'm doing with the brands with content, I don't know your business. You're going to know what your personas and business are. So it's you, me, and AI. That's how I work with everyone that I coach or interact with. You can't do it by yourself. You and AI can't even do it by yourself. You've got to use this process and framework to pull this off to get it done. And other
I think
people have
one of
different
the
frameworks and processes, but this is the one I've developed.
yeah, it's very interesting to me that we've arrived at this state because first of all, I think you're absolutely right. Stringing together multiple agents that or assistants or custom GPTs, whatever you want to call them, stringing them together where each one is trained to be able to do that one step of the process very well is the design pattern that's kind of emerging. And if you look backwards, this really isn't that innovative in terms of approach. I always relate it to the assembly line and kind of Henry Ford kind of bringing
Mhm.
together, people have their stations. They
Yeah.
know how to do this one step of the manufacturing process, and then they hand it off to the next person. And
Yeah.
it's about being able to kind of have that end-to-end process where each person knows exactly what's expected of them, knows what the output should be, and you can measure and look at those pieces. And
Yep.
we've had this, right? This is what manufacturing has been for a very, very long time. It's kind of the sequential take the
Mhm.
widget, start it here, transform it, add
Yeah.
to it, remove to it, and then you get a finished product. But we
Exactly.
haven't necessarily had that same workflow in knowledge working. And it's
Correct.
kind of, oh, well, I'm going to give this entire task to this person, this creative person, and this person's going to go from no article at all and no definition of personas or
Mhm.
brand guidelines or whatever, and they're going to do absolutely everything, and then we'll have a finished product, and maybe they proof their own work and they edit it,
Yeah.
etc. And so we're starting to take these processes from knowledge work and break them down into these step by step
Mhm.
by step processes, which requires very clear expectation of what do you want the outcome to
Right.
be from each step so that you can then delegate it to an AI assistant.
Right. What's funny when you say that is if we're defining process, adding automation, and adding AI all at the same time, we probably would have gotten lift just by doing this previously before AI
Absolutely.
showed up. And there are companies that have done a great job with that. And even in knowledge work and in professional services, but that's the exception, not the rule. I mean, you walk inside the average agency, and if they ever have written an SOP or a process doc, they don't follow it. I mean,
Yeah.
in
It's like a
project
training tool
management,
that
right?
once you kind of get it, you're done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And if you start, I mean, corporate America still uses Basecamp because it doesn't have the rigidity of a project management system because nobody wants to follow a 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just like no one wants to work in a factory,
Yeah.
right? We
And,
want to
and
have
what's the
this
hardest part of any sales team is getting them to update Salesforce or the CRM to fill
exactly,
in the details.
or just
Yeah.
follow the process. What I'm actually
Or just,
looking for, and what I helped a friend develop, he's a sales consultant. We wrote a playbook using AI, and then what we did is we said, now let's use AI to see if they actually follow the playbook. Because
okay.
AI gave us not even compliance; it gave us a way to grade compliance at scale. And then from that, because no sales manager wants to hear every day that Johnny's not doing it right. Then once we have a compilation of feedback from each of them, then we can say, okay, now analyze all that and let's do Uber metadata on the 3 things to coach Johnny on in his one-on-one sales meeting. Because whatever sales manager hated, their pain point was preparing for one-on-one sales meetings. So as long as I have access to Gong, and we started doing it on that, right, and then right that's what AI does for us, and that was coming out of what do sales managers hate, and they hate critiquing their sales guys, and but hey, AI said this. It just read the playbook and listened to your gut. This isn't me. I'm just saying. What do you think? What do you think about this, Johnny? Like just think about how powerful it is to have AI sit on your team and do certain things for you.
And
If nothing
it
else.
makes it far more objective rather than
Mhm.
subjective because
Yeah.
it's the same prompt. And again, maybe the prompt is biased, but it's the same prompt kind of evaluating everyone in the
Yeah.
same
What
way,
the prompt
giving
thing.
more information to the manager.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I've done some coaching sessions where I'm helping people plan out their website, and I know what they need. I'm just saying, hey, let's try real quick. Let's go to prompt. Let's go to this prompt. We have we have your foundational docs. If I were building a B2B professional services website, what should be on the homepage? Okay, here's 13 things. What do you like? Okay, let's get rid of 8 and 9. You want these 11? Great. Use my persona and writing guidelines and start writing copy. Right? It just, I mean, we've built
Yep.
we've built 5, 7, 9 page websites in an hour using that. And I was like, here, there you go. Don't. And I never had to think about it. It wasn't my bias on my experience. It's like, okay, AI had access to the same knowledge base for all the fundamentals, and then I can spend my time on thinking of really creative things, because then they'll tell me this little thing they've been thinking about, and I'm like, ooh, that's going to grab people's attention. I instead of spending all that time on the basics, I spent my time on coming up with one good idea so that when you launch your website, you have something to talk about that isn't the same thing everybody else is talking about.
How often are you going into the agents, the assistants, the prompts behind them and updating or modifying? And I think the reason
Mm,
behind the question is the fact that we kind of can build an assistant, we can set it up, we can feed in the initial additional documents to kind of give it context. We have the initial prompt to kind of give it that context. But then the fact that that's saved, you can come back in a year and it's still going to be able to work on that level. But then you can also kind of have this iterative approach where each time you use it, maybe you go back and say, oh, well, it was a little bit too broad in its recommendations. Like, let's tailor that down. Or maybe I'm going to give it an additional document and refine it. So,
mm.
how often do you find that you are tweaking, modifying, and adjusting either the documents provided or the prompt? Or are you just kind of, they're kind of good and you're just using them now?
Well, there's two answers to this. One, you are right that if it's a simple prompt, simple inputs, outputs, and the what someone's looking for is fairly benign, you probably don't have to update it. And a use case might be write a LinkedIn post. I mean, write a tweet. Who cares, right? Those are probably pretty easy. But when you're truly trying to do something that it's a little tricky. So to answer your question, right now I'm having to update my prompts every month. And it's not because the prompt is right or wrong. It's actually because the large language model keeps freaking changing, right? Like a prompt that works one day won't won't do the same thing a few days later. Now I think this will clear itself up, but I can almost like there's two things that I notice. The prompts change and then everything gets slower in the browser. I know they're doing a software release. And then sure enough, the next day everything gets faster again. And then I got to go check all my prompts real fast. And usually I catch it, but sometimes somebody might mention, or I'll see the output that comes through because I'll peek in and see what's coming out of either the chat or the document creation. I'll be like, that's a little off, and I have to go back to the prompt. And then when you get a big version release, like when 4.0 came out, or when Claude did 3.5 Sonnet, you've really got to go. So if you have the ability, sometimes you may want to stay on an older version until you can just stop and maybe run through some of your more complicated prompts. But this is going to become a bigger problem. What I do, I keep an official copy of all of my prompts not only in a prompt library, I keep them in an Airtable. The reason this is important is that all of my zaps are make automations. I actually just call the Airtable instead of hard coding them into the zap, because nothing takes more time than to go find all your prompts in the zaps. So there's a way, like I'm programming in knowing that I'm going to have 100 prompts, and I don't want them all in Google Docs. I don't want them in zaps. I want them somewhere where I can call them or manage them and see all them at the same time, or even maybe have an assistant be able to run through them quickly. And she's not going to know where all this is. So, but yeah, I think we should know that as the next versions of large language, prompt library, prompt engineering, managing these, it's going to get messy. I mean,
Yeah.
this is not, there's not a GitHub for this. There's not a place to check in your code, right? And the difference is, and I'll say about software, in software, I have kind of a known UX or, expected
Design pattern.
behavior flow that I've put through user testing. This is nothing like this, right? I've got to train people how to do the inputs, what to expect in the outputs, and also have to say, don't fuck with it. Like, don't try to break it. And everyone wants to break it. They want to show me. And it's like, look, if I try to figure out all the ways that you can break it, then I'm in the software business. I don't want to be in the software business. I want to be in the efficiency, performance, get rid of the junk we don't like every day so that we can focus on what we want. That's the business I want to be in. So don't break it. Watch this 5-minute video, do it the way I tell you, like it'll work if you do it the right way. Like I'm not making software. I'm not a software engineer. I'm a marketer.
So talk to me. I actually specifically like that you touched on using make.com and Zapier, even Airtable. What stack of low code, no code tools are you using to stitch all this together? Because you're right in that it's a new paradigm. It's a completely new type of information we're managing and tracking. And so I'm always deeply curious about what are people using from a prompt perspective, or what agents are they building, which your next level with your 80 to 100 prompts. But in terms of managing and orchestrating all of that, I love the setup of having all of your prompts in a centralized database that you're then pulling out of whenever you need them.
Yeah.
What else do you have going on behind the scenes to kind of power?
Yeah. So another thing to think about, if there's a couple different problems that had to be solved. One is inputs. When you're having a conversation with a chatbot and they're trying to fix this, there are certain data points. What's your name? What's your email? Are good examples for like maybe something that does lead gen or customer service. AI doesn't handle this well. It doesn't manage data. Our large language models and
it'll forget your name and things like this.
Yeah. Well, even if it knows your name, what am I going to do? Am I going to do a control F in a chat transcript and extract this data? So the first is input. So what I decided to do was use form technology. I use Typeform. You could use there's all kinds out there. I'll let you pick your own technology, but you need some way to get structured data from people. So even if I'm in a chat bot, I can have told the prompt that if they don't have a persona, like I'll ask them, do you have a persona? No. Here's a link. It's a Typeform. Fill it out. Because now I can do a whole bunch of things because I have structured data. Now this is going to get solved by AI. It's in the roadmap. I mean, I know it is, and I see add-on bots. They have a concept called a loose form, where it knows the questions that are tagged. Like they're going to figure this out, but they're having to do the same type of work. So one is inputs. That's something you've really got to have. Then, because from that Typeform, I can bounce it over to Zap. I can possibly even send that information to a chatbot if they have the API set up. I can throw the data into Airtable. I can make a Google Doc so you have a PDF of your persona. Since I have these inputs, I can do different things with them. And there's AI processing all these forms, but I'm using it to get from input to final doc. And that's an important step. So inputs. The other thing is on top of Airtable, and Airtable has a concept. I think they call it interfaces. I don't use their product for this. Is I add on a user interface from there's products. One is Softer, SOFTR. One is the one I use is Stacker. Basically, it hooks up to Google Sheets or Airtable and lets you output to people. Okay, so now I have an input and I have an output, and the input could be Airtable, it could be, but I like how the Typeform is more questionable, and I can even, like, if they answer question 2 this way, ask question 3 differently. There's just some different things going on, but you got your inputs, then you have, keeping everything in an environment and getting it in the interface, and then also you got to have your outputs. And most people don't think about this when they're thinking about flow, like what kind of format do you want it in? Where do you want it stored? Because I kind of have to decide, do I want the data to go into Airtable, or do I want it to go directly into a Google Doc for the next step in the process? Because if I'm making copy, I'm going to pass that on to a writer. Why not put the data coming out of Zap right into Google Docs? So it's these type. Now we're talking about automation and efficiency, which is and AI is helping every round of the way. Like as AI is building the Google Doc, I'll have it go ahead and write an outline. That way, when the writer opens it, the writer knows the title, the target keyword, the persona, and has an outline that I know already is helpful on that topic. So I know you asked about the tech stack, but the tech stack is driven by what you're trying to accomplish, which is to move the task down the field. And yeah, that's why you honed in on the make and the zaps, is that you've got to have a way to move all this around. And I have a part-time full stack developer. She can write in Python. She's not allowed. I do it all in low code and no code, and I don't even write like low code. And when I say low code, I'm really talking about APIs, and how I can get at them, because there's a little bit of code there that that you've got to do to kind of process to do the web, that kind of stuff. But no, we solve all these problems using no code tools and integrations that so that we don't we it's easy to build, but we're riding on everybody else's work, because, like I said, I don't want to be a software guy. I just want to get all this connected and get it flowing through the system so it can be scaled. And there's a nice clean process.
I love the distinction too between not being a software guy, because I think within the world of software, there's this desire to make things beautiful, which is noble, but I think it can distract in the way of getting results. And I think marketers often are about, let's just get the result. And if I have to stitch this together, but it's faster and there's no Python code, then I'm going to do that, right? And you're going to kind of get the result that you need. I want to shift to SEO. Obviously, a lot of the content that we're talking about, having the personas, comes back into generating helpful content and informational content that appeals and connects with people so that they can ultimately connect with you, potentially buy a product, a service, whatever you're selling. Search, though, is historically a very text-driven, even the internet, right? It's all very text-driven. Google's been kingpin. We'll see what happens with this DOJ case. Is it DOJ? No, sorry, not DOJ. The SEC, whoever's breaking them up.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. The monopoly case.
The monopoly.
So do you think that search itself is going to change from this text-based world to a conversation with an agent? Or any predictions on, is SEO going to die over time? Does it still matter? Where does content come into play? The future of the internet? Broad question, but what are your thoughts as someone who's more connected to SEO?
I can't speak directly to that, but I'll say a couple things. The first piece is search has already changed. And before AI, social media changed search. Discord and WhatsApp changed search. The communities that we developed post-COVID when we went virtual, and now we're all parts of business networks that are virtual, and so we have a wider referral network. Search has changed tremendously already. AI is going to further change that, but there's this. What most people do is, and what we can see is that we can see the next island. I call it I can see the next island clearly. I'm sailing towards it. Then there's another island I know I'll be able to see after that, but I'm not sure about the third island, right? That's the one that's tricky. So I can say for myself, as a user of AI, my search consumption, our use, has been cut in half. And what I noticed, though, when I stopped and thought about it, my business intent search stopped. Like I don't search for business as much, business needs, but I absolutely still use it for personal. So my personal,
elaborate, like what's a business need versus a personal need?
Usually how-tos or research that I would do. Like used to in the old days, if I wanted to research a company, I would type their name into Google and start looking around. Now I have an assistant that if I tell it the name, it can tell me everything. It can tell me everything I need about that company and even throw it in Salesforce, right? It's those type of business activities that were just, or if I want to learn more about an industry, I would have to go and I'd have to do 10 queries and then kind of remember it all in my head, or build some large Obsidian, or, keep, or just something to keep track of all this stuff. It's just like, no, now I can just go to AI and I can just start interacting with it. And it's accessing the same words and knowledge that Google has. And I, so that's why I say in a business context, but in search, I can't go there and see the baseball score, get an analysis of the football game or whatever it might be. So for me, I use AI for some very, I think, interesting personal things we won't get into. Everybody does, plan a trip, your personal, maybe a basement redesign, there's all kinds of things on the personal side. So that's one. Like, I think we're going to see that search is used differently going forward. But more importantly, if you think about where Google is going with their E.E.A.T and their helpful content, I think we're going to see a shift towards video is where I'm going, because with video, you can't put AI and act like you're human. And usually the smartest things that people say are in sound bites. It's things like, even if I were to write a book, or if I'm interviewing someone who wrote a book, they went and talked to a bazillion people. They presented at conferences. They talk. And then they say something enough. They're like, oh, I should write that down. That's a chapter. That's how this works. So I think thinking about things that are produced by real experts who have experience, who talk to you, is gonna be more prevalent in how we search for information. And I think Google's already leaning into this. So it's not that copy is going to go away. It's just, copy is going to be the transcription and the FAQs and then the chapters, like in books, that come out of what we say. But I think this is why Google cares about who wrote it, who they are, why they're communicating it, right? Like they're caring about that, because that's what you're going to be able to find in search that you can't find in AI, is real people saying real things. And this is why I think Google is going down the path. And that's a third island, right? That we'll get to, because I even feel like, you said it earlier, the tools we're using for AI right now, they're first island tools. Get rid of something, make me an image, blah, blah. We haven't actually developed anything yet that the normal layperson can't think of themselves, right? Like, we haven't really used AI to do anything. It hasn't. We haven't had a transformational moment yet, where it's like, wow, the world is changing now. It just, I can read my email. It can, it can help me with, do a comment on LinkedIn. It can help me with my base copy for a blog post. But it's not doing anything magical beyond that yet. We think it can, but it's just not doing it yet.
Chuck, this has been a really, really eye-opening conversation. I feel like I'd love to kind of peek behind the scenes and see the probably growing, beautiful monstrosity that is your prompts, all connected together, all firing on all cylinders and all being updated. But I really appreciate kind of the deep dive. If people want to learn more about you, about your company, about what you're doing, connect with you, where should they go?
Two places. So I mentioned Tidal Wave Content. You can go to that website. It's where I'm building all these beautiful, currently disconnected agents that eventually will work together. Tidal Wave Content. It's a free website. I'm making all my tools available there, and I will not spam. I don't even think I've sent an email yet to the people that are signed up. Or connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you want to talk branded content, search, SEO, it's what I've been doing for 20 years. So yeah, we could have some fun, putting some things together for it.
Links will be in the show notes. Chuck, thank you again for your time and coming on the show.
Thank you.